The power struggle was already over by the time they brought me back. My older brother, 3 years ahead of me, now controlled the family empire. The girl who had replaced me had married into another influential family, securing her own path. And me? I was just an ordinary girl from a small town, someone who had dropped out of middle school, with a limited view of the world and a simple way of speaking. My parents, their faces shadowed with quiet disappointment, placed me in the West Wing annex of their sprawling estate. They promised lifelong care, yet not once did they share a meal with me. 3 months of living in that gilded isolation was enough. I decided it was time to step out. "Oh, my sweet boy, look what Grandma brought you." "Mom, you're spoiling him too much. He's my perfect grandson. If not me, then who?" Their laughter echoed through the grand living room as they guided a little boy, no older than 3, inside. I recognized the scene. I had been hearing it for months. The warmth, the jokes, the ease between mother and daughter. It filled the house, yet it wasn't meant for me. I had returned here only 3 months prior. My adoptive parents had just passed when a man who looked faintly like me appeared. He claimed to be my brother and told me the family had searched for me for years. My parents, he said, had longed to see me again. I had always known I wasn't their biological daughter. Part of me wanted to meet the people who had given me life, to understand how I had been lost in the first place. The truth was harsher than I imagined. There was already a daughter here, the one who had taken my place in every sense, Rosalind Kenny. It was Rosalind's biological mother who had stolen me from the hospital and abandoned me. By chance, someone had found me and raised me. Now Rosalind was accomplished, an elite university graduate, director of public relations at the Kenny Corporation, married to Declan Vance, heir to a fortune rivaling our own, and a mother herself. And I was just a fisherman's daughter, with little education beyond middle school. My biological parents met me once, then immediately confined me to the annex. Life in the main house carried on without me, my only connection a bank account my brother had generously funded. Pocket money, he called it. I paused under the rose trellis, listening to my mother Eleanor ask when Mr. Vance would arrive for dinner. At that moment, the housekeeper responsible for me arrived, gripping my arm and dragging me toward my lonely wing. "Honestly, Miss Stella, don't you know your place?" she whispered sharply. "Why are you here in the main house? You can't possibly follow Mrs. Kenny and Miss Rosalind. Don't humiliate yourself." Her grip tightened, her expression twisting in scorn. "Still dreaming of replacing Miss Rosalind or marrying Mr. Vance yourself? Take a good look in the mirror. You're nowhere near her league." The Kennys and Vances had a long-standing arrangement, a betrothal from infancy. Had I not been abandoned, I would have been the one married to Declan Vance. In my 3 months here, I'd seen Declan only once. I had been looking for a stray cat I'd been feeding when I accidentally stepped into the path of his car. My so-called mother had pulled me aside, eyes wide with alarm. "What are you doing out here? Stop causing scenes," she had hissed. Rosalind was just a newborn. You can't blame her. She and Declan grew up together. There's a bond you could never break. Be realistic. The Kenny family will provide for you, but nothing more. 3 months had passed. Rosalind remained the cherished daughter, while I lingered in the annex, at the mercy of the housekeeper's whims for meals, unsure how to even operate the high-tech kitchen. As I studied her sneering face in the fading evening light, a laugh slipped out of me, growing louder, fueled by disbelief and a strange amusement. She yanked me back toward my rooms. "Stay here," she barked, then paused to fire one last barb. "You're not a child anymore. Learn to be clever. Flatter the young mistress and Mrs. Vance. Maybe they'll find you a nice widower. But if you get kicked out, who'll care then?" She had more entitlement than the true daughter of the house. I didn't wait for her. I turned and walked away from the annex. All I had wanted was a glimpse of my biological parents. All I had sought now was a quiet farewell. Since that wasn't possible, this walk would have to suffice. When I left, I carried only 3 things with me: my ID, my bank card, and my phone. The driveway of the Kenny estate seemed endless as I walked down it for the last time. Beyond the iron gates, a taxi waited just as I'd arranged. I had arrived by the Kennys' private jet, but I was leaving in the most ordinary way possible, by train. I bought a sleeper ticket for a cross-country ride, grabbed some takeout, a soft pretzel, a slice of pizza, and 2 sticky cinnamon buns, and settled into my seat. The train rumbled steadily across the countryside, the scenery rolling by in a blur of greens and golds. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. A week later, I returned to the quiet coastal town I had always called home. I had sent some boxes ahead of me, and after sharing a few things with the neighbors, I headed to the docks to look at boats. Fishing was in everyone's blood here. My parents had died at sea a few months earlier, lost during a storm as they tried to save another crew. Our boat had gone down with them, battered beyond repair. I thought I'd never sail again. But fate has a strange sense of humor. Now I had $2 million in my account. I spent $800,000 on a fishing boat larger and sturdier than anything my parents ever owned. The moment I set out, the wind tangled my hair, the salt stung my lips, and I finally felt like myself again. My parents had taught me everything about the sea, how to read the waves, predict the wind, and find fish even without sonar or fancy tools. I trusted my instincts, and soon enough, the nets below tugged heavy with the promise of a good catch. I smiled, feeling that deep, simple satisfaction that money could never buy. This was my life. My real life. That evening, I hauled the nets ashore, sold my catch at the docks, and returned to town to pay off the balance on my boat. By the time I got home, the sky had already turned a dusky violet. I lit 3 sticks of incense for my parents, then scrubbed the small house until it shone. Old Mrs. Gable from next door came by with a warm meal, her wrinkled face creased with concern. She had been the one who found me as a baby, washed up by the tide, freezing and barely alive, before bringing me to the people who would become my parents. "Did they treat you badly, child?" she asked softly. "But weren't you their real daughter?" I smiled faintly. Turns out blood doesn't always mean family. And besides, the other girl, she's extraordinary. Smart, beautiful, well-educated. Mrs. Gable sighed. "You're still just a young woman, alone on the sea. How long can you keep this up?" I walked her home, then made my way to the mayor's office. Most of the town's fishermen sold their catch to a processing plant for next to nothing. The plant made all the profit, while the locals barely scraped by. Many young people had already left for the cities, leaving only the elderly behind. I proposed a plan. I'd invest part of my money to build a small local processing station and start an online store to sell directly to customers. With live streams and online marketing, we could cut out the middlemen and raise profits by at least 30%. The mayor was thrilled. Within a week, a group of diligent townswomen set up a temporary facility by the docks, cleaning, sorting, and packing orders as they came in. For the live streams, we brought in the younger locals who had city experience and fast tongues. I started my own channel too, but mine wasn't about selling. I filmed life at sea, how to spot fish, navigate by the tides, recognize seafood species, and handle emergencies like falling overboard. Life alone could be lonely at times, but it was also peaceful. I could sail whenever I wanted, explore hidden coves, and chase the horizon without anyone telling me where I belonged. One afternoon, I dozed off on deck, lulled by the rhythm of the waves, when my second phone, the one the Kennys knew about, suddenly rang. Half asleep, I answered. My brother Julian's sharp, angry voice cut through the receiver. "Stella, is this your idea of a tantrum?" he snapped. "You're not a teenager anymore. Do you think running away makes you special? Grandfather wants to see you. Get back here, now." It took me a second to recall that the Kennys had a patriarch, an old man who had been recovering abroad. Apparently, he was home and had finally realized I was gone. I leaned back and said evenly, "Please send him my regards. I'm working. I won't be coming back." "Working?" His voice rose with disbelief. "What kind of job can someone with a middle school education possibly have? A waitress? A factory worker? You're embarrassing yourself and the family." He paused, his tone turning cold and commanding. "I'm giving you 1 day. Apologize to Mom and Dad and return to the annex. We'll make sure you don't starve. The least you can do is stop humiliating us." I closed my eyes, letting the breeze wash over my face, and quietly adjusted my boat's direction. When he finally fell silent, I asked calmly, "Are you finished?" "You." "I'm not asking for your permission," I interrupted. "I'm telling you my decision. I'm not coming back. And you don't have to worry about your family name being dragged through the mud, because it's not my name." I hesitated for just a moment before adding, "Oh, and thank you for the $2 million and for your hospitality. But from now on, I'll handle my own life." After splashing my face with cold water, I realized my live stream was still running. The chat had erupted. Viewers were flooding in with questions, curious, excited, judgmental. Which family did I belong to? What was my connection to them? Frankly, I didn't care to answer. The Kennys had always treated my lack of education as a flaw. I wanted nothing more to do with them. I secured my equipment in a waterproof case and dove beneath the waves, letting my audience explore a world far more breathtaking than any night sky. But it wasn't long before the stream was shut down due to a complaint. I created another account. Shut down again. Frustrated, I returned to town to get a new SIM card. As I approached the village, I sensed a strange tension. A line of sleek black cars was parked along the docks. Julian stepped out of one, his expression stormy. From another vehicle, Eleanor emerged, her face tight with irritation. "Stella, how long will you continue this?" she demanded. "Are you trying to embarrass us by staying in this backwater? Do you want everyone to laugh at our family?" Behind her, Rosalind stepped down, her own face a mix of sorrow and disdain. "Sister, I know we've wronged you," she began, her voice quivering slightly. "But putting yourself on display like this, the sea is dangerous. You're breaking Mom and Dad's hearts. If my presence bothers you, I can stay away. I can meet them elsewhere. Would that make you happy?" At that moment, Toby, Mrs. Gable's little grandson, ran up and wrapped his arms around my legs. I scooped him up, spinning him until he giggled. "Stella." Julian barked, fury barely contained. I sighed, holding Toby, and faced them. "Julian, do you remember what I told you before I left?" He frowned, dismissive. "I said I would see for myself." I reminded him. "I have. And now I've left. What's the problem?" You're trying to save face." I cut in. "Well, your face is already right where it belongs, on your head." Toby reached up and patted Julian's cheek. "It's right here," he said in his tiny, firm voice. Turning to Eleanor, I continued. "We won't let you starve, you said? When have I ever needed anything from you? If you truly missed me, if you truly cared, wouldn't you have thought of me? I lived in your house for 3 months. Can you point to a single moment when I was anything but an inconvenience?" My tone sharpened. "Yes, I lack a prestigious education. But when I was near death, it was my adoptive parents who fed me, taught me, and raised me to be a decent human being. Do not presume that your DNA gives you the right to dictate my life." I glanced at Rosalind and laughed coldly. "You want to play the victim? Do you know what it feels like to be abandoned as a newborn in the ocean? Drowning is easy compared to the shock, the hypothermia, the currents. And yet, here you stand, lecturing me with your crocodile tears. Do you think I'm that naive?" Julian's face contorted in rage. "Stella, watch your tone." Eleanor trembled with fury. "You are being completely unreasonable." She motioned to the bodyguards who had emerged from the cars. "Bring her back." 2 men lunged forward. One yanked Toby from my arms and set him down roughly. The other grabbed me, but I was quick and wiry. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Finn, a local villager, sprinted over with his phone on a selfie stick, grabbing my other arm to resist them. "This is my daughter." Eleanor snapped. "Step aside." Finn held the phone in her face. "Say that again," he challenged. She went silent, grinding her teeth. I smirked. "Ashamed of me? Good. Then consider the $2 million a severance package. Our relationship is over." I scooped Toby up again, linked arms with Finn, and walked away without looking back. I calmly began setting up a third account. Before any bans could strike, I received a message from a company called Blue Horizon Technologies. They were coordinating an oceanic research expedition that had gone missing in a storm. Lives were at stake, and they needed my help. I couldn't decipher all the technical reports and weather data, but I had something they didn't. Instinct. I was transferred to their vessel, and we sailed toward the coordinates. By the time we arrived, the storm had intensified. After reviewing their logs and stepping onto the deck to feel the wind and waves, I pointed in a precise direction. 2 hours later, through the churning waters, we spotted it. The missing vessel, adrift and powerless. The crew cheered, stunned and elated. Professor Davies, who had accompanied me, turned to me with a new light in his eyes. "Miss Stella," he said, "I've been following your streams. Your talent is extraordinary, wasted on simple fishing. I would like to invite you to join our Institute for Oceanic and Atmospheric Studies as a special consultant for the Tidal Prediction Project. What do you say?" My first instinct was to refuse. Know your limits. Stick to what you're good at. I had never imagined holding a government or research position, and I doubted I had what it took. Professor Davies anticipated my hesitation. "Every year, countless vessels are lost at sea due to storms. With your instincts, We could improve predictions and save lives. And the technical knowledge? We'll teach you everything you need. I had no reason left to decline. Soon, I was enrolled in advanced courses, meteorology, foreign languages, and more. With the maturity and focus that life had given me, learning came naturally. For the first time, I felt I could take on something truly meaningful. Days slipped into a steady rhythm. I spent my time traveling by boat between the institute and the village, diving deep into research and coursework. Work consumed me so completely that I barely touched my phone. When I finally checked it, a short message from Rosalind blinked on the screen. "You win." I frowned, confused, until Finn explained everything. His stream had exploded in popularity. Overnight, he had become the village's biggest online sensation. Thanks to the exposure, the villagers no longer depended entirely on the processing plant. Half their catch sold instantly through his channel at far better prices. Finn never stopped thanking me. The day my account was banned, he went live, publicly daring the Kenny family to silence him. He vowed to keep creating new accounts until they gave up. Faced with the threat of more public scrutiny, they finally backed off. But the Kennys' name was too well known to escape attention. They were a corporate powerhouse, their influence stretching across industries. Once viewers connected the dots from my viral confrontation, people flooded Finn's stream, curious to see the real daughter who publicly humiliated the Kenny matriarch and heir. Even Rosalind, who managed the corporation's PR account, couldn't contain the damage. The comments section overflowed with criticism, questioning how she could live comfortably while benefiting from another's suffering. Her husband, Declan Vance, was ambushed by reporters at an event, pressed with uncomfortable questions about his wife's integrity. Reading her text again, I couldn't help but smile faintly. Then I locked my phone and assumed that was the end of it. I was wrong. The Kennys came back again. This time, Eleanor arrived announcing they had found me a suitable match. A man from an elite family equal in power to the Vances. If I agreed to marry him, she promised, I'd never have to worry about anything again. Sounds like a generous offer, I said, stirring the fire in my small stove. The scent of smoke mingled with the sea breeze, grounding me. Eleanor's lips tightened as she stepped back, clearly uncomfortable with the rustic simplicity of my home. Yes, it's an opportunity people would kill for. In that case, I said lightly, why don't you and Rosalind enjoy it? Her eyes widened in disbelief. What did you just say? I said, you can tell Rosalind to relax, I repeated. I'm not after her husband, and I don't want her son. You can stop coming here. Her composure cracked. The expensive heels she wore had no place in the dirt where I'd built my life, and I had no intention of trading my peace for her approval. Not long after, I moved into the dormitories at the institute and threw myself entirely into study and research. Julian bombarded me with messages, most of them variations of one threat. If you don't cooperate, don't expect another cent. I couldn't help laughing. They had only fed me for 3 months, and honestly, the seafood from my village was far better than anything their chefs prepared. I was his sister by blood, but not his property. I didn't need his money, and I never had. Mrs. Gable had been right. $2 million could stretch a long way if you knew how to live simply. Add to that the success of the village's new business, and I was doing just fine. My life became a blur of lessons, expeditions, and research projects. To everyone's surprise, including my own, I excelled. My teachers kept advancing me to more specialized courses, and during fieldwork, my instincts saved several crews from danger. Word of these achievements spread, and the villagers couldn't have been prouder. When the holidays came, I decided to return home to tidy the house and light incense for my late parents. As I stepped off the boat, I noticed Finn talking to a young woman waiting on the dock. He waved me over. The woman had been waiting for me for over 2 weeks, as it turned out. It was Julian's wife, Clara Kenny. Unlike the rest of her family, Clara carried no arrogance. She was gentle, almost hesitant, which made me willing to listen. When we reached my home, she lit 3 sticks of incense for my parents before sitting down. Her manner was polite, but I could sense the purpose behind her visit. Are you planning to live like this forever? She asked quietly. I raised an eyebrow, unsure what she was getting at. You know the Kenny family can offer you much more than this, she continued. Resources, connections, opportunities. You'd have access to an entire world most people only dream of. I understood her meaning. This wasn't about concern, it was negotiation. She wanted me to come back into the fold, smooth things over, and let the scandal fade away. To her, swallowing my pride was the smart choice. And maybe it was for someone else. Instead, I handed her a pair of my worn boots and led her to my boat. The sea was restless that day, wind whipping through our hair as we cut across the waves. She screamed at first, but soon began to laugh, her fear giving way to exhilaration. That night, we lay on the deck beneath a stretch of endless stars. "I think I understand now," Clara whispered after a long silence. The Kennys had enough wealth to buy anything they wanted, except this, the boundless freedom of the open sea. "But what about your future?" she asked softly. "With the family's backing, you could go so much further." I tossed her my ID card. "The Kennys? They don't matter. I work for my country now." Clara didn't argue again. She stayed for 2 more days, trading her designer clothes for my old shirts, joining me in fishing and studying the waves. When she left, she looked different, calmer, lighter. But once she returned to the capital, the story spread. News of her visit and my refusal ignited fresh outrage within the Kenny family. To them, I had thrown away the chance to become a useful asset, a daughter they could shape, a pawn they could sell into another powerful alliance. By choosing my freedom, I had destroyed whatever value I once held to them. And for the first time in my life, that loss felt like true victory. For the first time, Eleanor reached out to me personally. Her voice carried a long pause before she finally exhaled. "Why do you insist on making this so difficult? You barely finished middle school. The path you've chosen, it's going to be incredibly hard for you." In the background of the video call, I noticed Rosalind standing silently, her face a mix of curiosity and confusion. I smiled faintly at Eleanor. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm not afraid of hard work." The idea of a life spent in idle luxury seemed far more terrifying to me than any struggle. "Then come home for the holidays," she suggested gently. I shook my head. I barely knew them, and I had no wish to become a curiosity in their high society spectacle. I declined politely, and for the first time, they seemed to understand. I didn't want their wealth or their plans, and I would never let them dictate my future. Julian's last message was a threat. One day, I would regret this and return to beg for their help. I just wondered where he found such confidence. Instead, I spent the holidays with Mrs. Gable and her family, using my investment dividends to give her grandchildren generous gifts and enjoy a quiet, joyful celebration. It took nearly 3 years for me to complete my specialized studies. Along the way, I met remarkable colleagues, mentors, and friends. The world the Kennys always bragged about finally opened before me, but entirely on my terms. Though I couldn't stand the Kennys, Clara became a true friend. During long holidays, she brought her children to visit my small home. We spent our days on the boat, fishing, exploring tide pools, chasing sunrises, and discovering hidden islands. Julian never spoke during these visits, and I was more than happy to ignore him. My career officially began with small victories, guiding ships caught in dangerous storms safely back to harbor. Gratitude from one captain led to another, and soon commendations, letters, and public recognition began arriving. By the 3rd year, I was offered a position as associate professor in the meteorology department at the National Maritime University. That same year, Clara called with an unusual invitation. My biological father's 55th birthday was approaching, and the family planned to publicly reveal my identity at the party. I checked my schedule. "I'm working that day," I said. Julian erupted instantly. "It's just a schedule. Can't you rearrange it? You're just a weather forecaster. Don't act like you're important." I chuckled softly. When did I ever claim to be important? "Then someone unimportant like me shouldn't bother Mr. Kenny with announcements," I replied calmly, hanging up to the sound of his sputtering fury. My adoptive parents had given me a life rich with love, sacrifice, and warmth, everything the Kennys could never offer. Despite my refusal, I found myself in the capital. 2 days before the party, Professor Davies selected me to attend an international oceanic symposium. As I left the venue, a man in a wheelchair stopped me. "Miss Stella," he said, looking nervous. I'm one of the people your parents saved at sea years ago. I owe them my life." It clicked. This was the man my parents had rescued before their tragic deaths. He had fallen into a coma and was moved to another hospital before I could meet him. I waved him off gently. No apologies needed. On the sea, helping others is just what we do. I felt certain my parents would have been proud to see him alive and well. He glanced at Professor Davies, who nodded in encouragement, then invited me to dinner. Over the meal, I learned his name was Ethan Croft. He had recently awoken from his coma and spent months in therapy, determined to find those who saved his life. Halfway through, a loud slam interrupted us. Julian appeared, fuming. "So, you can't come home for Dad's birthday, but you can spend time with some random man?" His eyes lingered on Ethan's wheelchair. And a cripple, no less. Figures. I ignored him, moving to push Ethan's chair away. Julian pressed on, berating me for my lack of standards, until Ethan calmly held my arm and presented a business card to Julian. Julian paused, reading it, and his anger faltered into a stiff, awkward smile. Ethan's voice was icy, yet controlled. "A woman like me, with a man like me, has no need for your approval, Mr. Kenny." Julian fumbled, explaining who I was and why he had been harsh, while Ethan cut through his excuses with quiet authority. When he finally left, Ethan released my hand, apologizing for the display. "I couldn't resist," he admitted with a grin. I shrugged. "No harm done." "And the birthday party?" he asked cautiously. "I have work. I probably won't attend," I said simply. "Understood," he nodded, and we turned our attention back to the meal, leaving the chaos behind us. The symposium lasted an entire week, and when it ended, Ethan returned with me to my village. He abandoned his wheelchair, insisting on walking with crutches to visit my parents' graves. He saw the condition of my small, weathered house and quietly arranged for local craftsmen to restore it from the inside out, adding new appliances and comfortable furnishings without being overbearing. He stayed only until his doctors insisted he return to the city for ongoing treatment. Meanwhile, Clara began reaching out more frequently, her messages tinged with polite obligation. I slowly started putting distance between us. Ethan, on the other hand, became a constant presence in my life. Almost every day, a new message appeared on my phone, and I found myself keeping it within reach at all times. The theories I'd presented at the International Symposium were quickly confirmed, earning me recognition. Concerned for my safety due to my rising prominence, Professor Davies assigned 2 security officers to accompany me. Life remained steady and calm for another 2 years. I didn't visit the Kenny estate, not until Eleanor fell gravely ill. A simple cold had escalated rapidly, and the hospital issued a critical condition alert. Clara called, asking if I wanted to return. After careful thought, I agreed. Eleanor's condition was indeed serious. I requested an extended leave from the institute. The Kennys, powerful and accustomed to attention, noted my arrival with subtle curiosity, aware of who I was thanks to the viral videos from years past. They kept their eyes averted, but their glances betrayed surprise and interest. Julian sneered at the plainclothes security officers behind me. "Seems we need a formal request to have you here now," he said. "That is correct," I replied calmly. Everyone except Clara and her children looked uncomfortable. They were beginning to realize that I was no longer a girl they could control. My presence was guided not by affection for them, but perhaps by a sense of duty, or maybe because of the $2 million they had given me years ago. Professor Davies arranged for a team of specialists to consult on Eleanor's case, and her condition stabilized quickly. While the family celebrated, I quietly prepared to leave. Julian and Clara intercepted me. Julian waved his phone, showing a series of potential suitors. "You're not getting any younger. Here are some options." I smiled, stopping him. "No need. I'll spend my life at sea." Could any of these men handle that? Clara barely held back a laugh, and Julian's face darkened. As I rounded the corner, Ethan was waiting, fully recovered, and now in control of his family's corporation. He raised an eyebrow. "So, your only condition for a husband is that he can live at sea?" I met his gaze, feeling my heart skip. "Don't joke." "It's a lifetime decision," he replied, serious. I would never joke about that. At that moment, a child's loud tantrum echoed down the hall. "I just want to play with Auntie Stella. She's way more fun than you. You're a shameless usurper." I froze. Declan Vance stood nearby, grim and silent, restrained by Rosalind. I raised Ethan's hand in greeting, and she stiffened. I had never wanted the title of Miss Kenny or any connection to Declan. My time with the children had been fleeting and playful. Walking away that day, I realized my attempt to perform for someone else had spectacularly failed. "Miss Stella, once you take a man's hand, you must take responsibility for him," Ethan said gently, holding my hand as we walked toward the airport gate. I had never considered myself remarkable. The first half of my life was spent scrambling for survival, and now, With the village's seafood business thriving, I had little interest in marriage or children. Standing at the boarding gate, I admitted my truth. I didn't believe I could be a good wife or a mother, and certainly not to the wife of a powerful business leader. Ethan's eyes softened. "I love you," he said simply. "The person you are, joyful, fierce, ordinary. It doesn't matter. You will always be that girl I saw treading water in the open ocean, freely chasing the fish." When I returned home, the yard was filled with packages from him. Only then did I realize just how present he had already become in my life. After we formalized our relationship, Ethan began shuttling constantly between the capital and my village, always mindful of my schedule. I could not bear to see him so exhausted, so I made an effort to meet him halfway. One night, my colleagues called urgently, insisting I step outside. The sky exploded with fireworks, and walking toward me was Ethan, kneeling on one knee with a bouquet. Under the stars, my heart couldn't deny the fluttering beat. I said yes. The following October, we quietly registered our marriage in the capital, forgoing any extravagant ceremony. Ethan tagged me on his company's global social media, promising a lifetime of happiness. Back in the village, we celebrated with my friends and neighbors. When Clara called later, I learned the Kenny family had redecorated the estate for a formal dinner with us. I looked around at the laughing villagers, my true family, and simply said, "Maybe next time, I'll take you out to dinner. You don't need to prepare anything here." When I finally returned to the capital, I treated Clara to a meal. She brought a share transfer agreement and a bank draft worth tens of millions, my dowry from the Kennys. I gently pushed both back. "I couldn't accept this," I said. Clara looked pained. "Your brother doesn't truly dislike you. He just hasn't known how to change over the years." "It doesn't matter," I said calmly. "When I came to the Kenny house, I just wanted to see if I had other family. I discovered our connection was too thin. I let it go. I've contributed nothing to the Kenny family," I finished, returning the documents. "I cannot accept these in good conscience." Clara understood. Our friendship remained, but the Kennys would never hold more significance in my life than a mere footnote.